Welcome back to Book Talk with Tracy. This is the second segment where I'm talking about my book, Wind Over Marshdale. Last time I talked about a little bit about, I did a painting that you can see behind me, but also the inspiration for the setting was the small prairie town where I grew up in Saskatchewan. And so a lot of the descriptions of the scenery and stuff, those are real. Fortunately, the characters aren't, but they were inspired by people that I've met along the way, because I have lived in a lot of different places. And I'll just read a little bit off the back here. It says, Marshdale, just a small farming community where nothing special happens. A perfect place to start over or get lost. And so the basic plot, it is actually quite involved. There's a lot of various characters, and I've noticed, I think, that a lot of my writing does that. It's rarely is it just about one or two people. It tends to be more about a community. But one of the main characters, her name is Rachel Bosworth, and she's a teacher who has basically run away from her family in Toronto. And so she's come west to Saskatchewan to teach in this small school. And although it is a contemporary, obviously it's set in contemporary times, it reminded me a little bit of my own grandma, who got on a train back in the early part of the 1900s. She was a school teacher, and she came west on an adventure to be a teacher on the prairies. And that's where she met her husband, my grandfather, Sam Miller, and they subsequently got married and that. But in any case, Rachel is, she's hurting. And there's a number of reasons for that. Partly it's her family who are overbearing, but also past relationships where she was hurt. And so she's run away to start over in what she thinks is this small town where nobody's going to find her and nobody's going to care. And part of her story then is that she meets a farmer, Con, who later, their love interest grows. But I won't spoil that, because another main character in the book is a man named Thomas Lone Wolf. And he is a Cree man who also moves to Marshdale, but he's moved there on a project. The area, I call it Old Man's Lake, but in fact, around that area, for real, there's a place called Old Wives Lake, where it was actually a gathering place for various indigenous tribes. And so he has come to set up some kind of a museum, or an interpretive center, would be a better way of putting it, there in Marshdale, based around all the artifacts and the history of the First Nations peoples in that area. And he is a Cree man himself. Unfortunately, he runs into unexpected racism. He's a single father. He's got a young daughter who, of course, is one of Rachel's students. And then he also has a teenage son. And so there is that thread of racism running through the book. And it's an important topic for me, because I feel, in this day and age, that we should know better, I guess. And yet it still seems to take place in this small farming community where everybody seems friendly. It is mostly white. And, he and his family feel like they're being ostracized to a degree. He is a Christian. And so that is even part of that storyline. The fact that, even good Christian people sometimes don't act the way they should. So there's a bit of a love triangle that takes place between Thomas and Rachel and Con, the farmer. And she's torn between the two men because she's attracted to both. And so that's kind of a major theme in the book as well, is this love triangle. But there's more. There is also a bit of a supernatural thread, if you will, that I've woven through the book, as well as a spiritual thread that goes beyond the fact that they are Christians. So I'm going to talk about that in the next episode. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining me for Book Talk. I'm having a great time. I hope you are too. Please look me up online, tracykrauss.com. That's TracyKrauss. No E in Tracy, 2 S's in Krauss. Or you can find my books anywhere good books are sold. And so tomorrow, or the next time, I guess, next week, we'll talk about that spiritual and supernatural thread that runs through Wind Over Marshdale. Until then, see you.